Now, top of a list of real problems that Trump may well move on is immigration. It could be his first major legislative initiative. Now, given that this crisis has been evolving over the years, I wanted to kind of break down how we got here, okay? Kind of looking at the last three presidents as what they faced when they came in and what they did with that, all right? Let's start with border crossing. So let's get the graphics going. Obama, we'll start with him. He left office 400,000 illegal border encounters. In Trump's first year, border crossings dropped to a record low of 300,000. Why? Tough talk on immigration, which served as a deterrent. In his last year, and then he had the home country agreements where he was facilitating deals where people kept processing in their own borders, within their own borders. His remain in Mexico, pressuring Mexico to put troops on the border with Guatemala and the border with the U.S. His last year, border encounters were at 400,000, okay? Now, why'd they go back up? Because the demand returned, okay? Now, you go to Biden. And Trump had set up Title 42, okay, which slowed down asylum because of the pandemic. That helped. In Biden's first year, though, border crossings skyrocketed to 1.7 million. Why? Wasn't talking tough about immigration, much more welcoming. There was a lot more instability in Latin America. There was a stronger U.S. economy post-COVID. You know, don't sleep on COVID as a factor in this. People weren't coming here because they were afraid of getting sick, or they were sick, and there weren't the same jobs, okay? And that was a big factor in suppressing the demand when Trump was in office, okay? Now, with a stronger economy, without COVID, you see crossings are like 5 times higher than when Trump left office. So what has he done? He has pledged to deport millions of illegal immigrants from the country. So let's compare how each president handled deportations. Obama's administration deported 240,000 migrants in 2016, but their enforcement policy focused, as does Biden's, on targeting criminals, not just those who only cross illegally. When Trump took office, his administration adopted a zero-tolerance policy, meaning everybody is seen as the same level of transgression, allowing immigration officials to deport anyone who crossed illegally. By 2019, deportations had reached a high of 267,000. During his last year, mostly due to COVID, again, they dropped. Biden takes office. His administration issues new guidance to the agents, telling them to target migrants who pose a national security or public safety threat. Okay, kind of like Obama, but maybe even more selective. Deportations, therefore, plummet because you're looking for a smaller band of people, 59,000 in his first year. Just recently, the Biden administration changed its enforcement policies, allowing agents to target migrants who also cross the border illegally. Deportations, of course, pop to 140,000. Migrants are coming to this country knowing that if they come and claim asylum, they can stay thanks to, in my opinion, a broken asylum system. 3 million migrants have pending cases. They wait on average 4 years just to get an asylum hearing. And remember, they're almost all released on their own recognizance, catch and release. So why would you come back if you know you're going to get thrown out? And that is what the system experiences. The question now is, what can Trump do to solve this crisis? And we have somebody who does not fit into the definition of people who are a head scratcher as to why they've been given the position by Trump they've been given. The man that we have tonight is arguably better than any man he could have picked within his reach, okay? Incoming border czar, Tom Homan. It's good to have you, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
The way I laid it out, pretty straight?
Yeah, there are a few things I disagree with you with, but I think it's more important, and you look at the numbers on the Biden administration, I care more about the numbers he released in the country more than I care about the deportation, because he released millions of people into the country where President Trump didn't.
And that is because, and please feel free to correct whatever assertions I made you don't agree with, you're the boss, but that is because Biden changed the definition of who the men and women doing enforcement should be looking for, correct?
No, that'd be ICE. He has changed the definition of who ICE should be looking for. He's made it clear, Secretary Mayorkas made it clear to ICE that being in the country illegally on its own without a criminal charge, if you're not a public safety threat or a national security threat, they're off the table. So they changed who ICE was looking for. But as far as the Border Patrol, they went from ending catch and release that the Trump administration had to releasing millions of people to the country. That's really the difference. And I blame that on ending the policies that were proven effective in the Trump administration. You know, look, I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. I've seen hundreds of policies come and go. I know what policies work, what policies doesn't. Love or hate Trump, the Remain in Mexico program was a game changer. People can still claim asylum, they wait in Mexico. That was a game changer, and after a few months, people stopped coming because when they realized they weren't going to be released in the United States, they weren't going to spend all their money giving it to the criminal cartels only to wait in Mexico. So, you know, by doing that, by moving immigration that low to a 45-year low, you know, less migrant deaths across the border, less women being sexually assaulted by the cartels. It had a really positive effect, the Remain in Mexico program.
First question is personal. You did the job. You just let people or reminded people how long you did the job. You were the acting director already. You then went into retirement after doing the job for the Trump administration for a while. They had your Senate confirmation up there. You didn't have to be confirmed originally because you were next in line for the job within the same agency. They pulled the confirmation. You retired. Why are you back?
Because I care. You know, Chris, I've done this. I started as a border patrol agent in 1984, so I know what it's like to wear that uniform. And when I joined ICE, 1989, I spent decades with ICE. I was the first ICE director that actually came up through the ranks. So the 20,000 men and women that reported to me, I never asked them or told them to do anything that I didn't do myself because I was one of them. I care. And I care because of the tragedies I've seen on the southwest border. You know, I've stood on the back of a tractor trailer with 19 dead people at my feet, including a 5-year-old little boy that baked to death. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 that were raped multiple times by a member of the cartel. And I can go on and on and on about the tragedies I've seen. I ran Operation Ice Storm in Phoenix, Arizona, where the cartels were ripping each other's house off, where they were holding illegal aliens waiting for the payment, and they're ripping each other off. And if a migrant couldn't pay his fees, they kill him. And before they kill him, they call the relative who's supposed to pay the fee, and they forced him to listen, torturing the man until they came up with the fees they demanded. So out of all the tragedies I've seen, plus I love the men and women of the Border Patrol. They put their lives online every day. Same with ICE. This can be fixed, and we need to fix it because it's going to save American lives. It's going to save alien lives. It just makes sense. There's no downside in a secure border. And I have arguments a lot up on Capitol Hill. Give me one downside in a secure border. What's the downside in less illegal immigration? What's the downside in less fentanyl that killed 250,000 people? What's the downside in less sex trafficking of women and children, which is up now 600%? What's the downside unless people on terrorist watch lists coming across the border? A secure border saves lives. A country can't have strong national security if we don't have border security. We got to know who's coming in, what's coming in, where it's coming in, why it's coming in. That's what national security is all about.
Tom, let's deal with the supply, and then we'll get to the migrants themselves. It used to be coyotes. Okay, now it's cartels. It's all you hear. And do you believe that instead of a national roundup of illegal entrants, our major focus of resources and political pressure on foreign countries should be on stopping the cartels in Mexico and the threat to Mexico that if they don't do it, and supposedly the new leader there is kind of against the idea of taking on the cartels, that will do it? And do you believe you could legally declare them terrorist organizations and use the military to go after cartels?
Well, look, you know, ever since I gave the speech at the RNC, I've had numerous death threats from the cartels against me and my family. And matter of fact, my family isn't with me right now because of the death threats. But, you know, President Trump has promised that he would designate them terrorist organizations. And I believe he should, and he will. And the reason why they should be designated terrorist organizations, the criminal cartels of Mexico have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. Now, I just said, you know, 250,000 Americans dying from fentanyl poisonings, and up to 4,000 aliens have died crossing the border. So, you know, these cartels are wreaking havoc in this country, and like I said, killed so many Americans. President Trump is committed to doing it, and I think he should, because the cartels are a national security threat to this country. You're getting a fentanyl from China. You know, the precursors, they send it to the criminal cartels. The cartels make this poison and send it across the border. The border violence is now coming across into the United States. The criminal cartels in Mexico is like a Fortune 500 company. I mean, the Jalisco cartels is in 42 countries now. These criminal cartels that smuggle this poison over across our border, it used to be about smuggling into the United States. Now they have a presence in every major city of this country. Now they're taking over the distribution network within the United States. They need to be attacked. They need to be wiped out. Absolutely.
So why isn't that the primary focus instead of rounding up 14 million or whatever the number is people when all the cartel guys are bad? Not all illegal entrants in this country are bad. Most of them are here trying to build a better life and responding to the economic demands of our job market.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, there's more than one priority. The president has made it a priority. He's going to take on these criminal cartels and call them terrorist organizations and take them out of business, hopefully. The second, and there's parallel priorities. The president's been clear on the stage, and I've been clear. The priorities for the deportation operation are public safety threats and national security threats. Last time I looked at the data, we have over 700,000 illegal aliens in this country that have a criminal conviction and a final order that are walking the streets. So, you know, we got that. That's our priority. And national security threats, those that are deemed by national security threat, either by the FBI or by the intelligence communities that we know are here, you know, they need to be, they're going to be a priority. But I'll say this. Let's talk about the other illegal aliens here. We've had millions of people encounter at our border, over 10 million. All right. Now, anybody goes to immigration court data, Executive Office of Immigration Review, you look at the data of the last decade. It says about 85%, I'm talking an average, about 85% of those who claim asylum at our southern border never get relief from the U.S. government because they simply don't qualify for asylum. Asylum is about escaping fear and persecution from your home government because your race, religion, and political affiliation or participation in a specific social group. So we know that millions of people come to the border. We know that average, almost 9 out of 10 will get an order removal. Now, you can't demand the U.S. government, okay, you have a right to claim asylum. You have a right to see a judge. You have the right to due process. But at the end of that due process, if a federal judge says, no, you must go home, if those orders aren't carried out, Chris, what the hell are we doing? Shut down the immigration court because the judge's order doesn't mean anything anymore. Shut down the Border Patrol because there's no consequence for entering this country illegally, which is a crime, by the way. Entering the country illegally is a crime. So you can't demand due process and right to see a judge, then ignore the final decision. Because what's the other option? We let them stay? Because then you send a message to the whole world. You can cross the border illegally, which is a crime. You can ask to go to court or not show up in court, get an order in absentia or get an order by a judge if you show up in court and not be removed. Everybody in the world is going to come to the greatest nation on earth. We can't withstand it. Let me tell you why. What happened under this administration, they have overwhelmed the Border Patrol with millions of people at an historic record. It went from the most secure border in my career to a historic illegal immigration. Border Patrol's been overwhelmed. There's been times where Border Patrol, 70% of agents have been pulled off the line. Several times in the last 2 years, 100% of the agents have been pulled offline in certain sectors like El Paso and Yuma. Every uniform is taken off the line. But on average, 70%. When you take 70% of Border Patrol agents off the line to take care of this humanitarian crisis, take care of these people in these facilities, that's when the cartels take advantage. They'll send a group of 100 family units to an area, know, okay, we only got 30% of Border Patrol agents left. Let's send this group of families through. They'll seize that opportunity. And what happens then? That's when they move the fentanyl that kills Americans. That's when they sex traffic women and children. That's when the bad guys come across that don't want to turn themselves into the Border Patrol. We got over 2 million gotaways. 2 million gotaways paid more to get away. You pay the cartels one amount of money to get to the border. The cartel's job ends at the border. Turn yourself in a green uniform. You get released within 24 hours. You get a free plane ticket to the city of your choice. You get a free hotel room. You get 3 meals a day, and you get medical care. Plus, you get work authorization in about 120 days. Why would 2 million people pay more not to take advantage of that giveaway program? Because they don't want to be vetted. They don't want to be fingerprinted. That's just scared the hell of all of us. They've arrested almost 300 people on the terrorist watch list. How many at 2.2 were off the terrorist watch list? So this, what people think is innocent, illegal immigration causes all this other bad things to happen. That's why we have to secure the border.
I get it. And I don't think anybody's going to meaningfully argue the reality of the problem. I think it's about the fix. You know, I would never suggest that I know any of this stuff anyway that you have. I mean, you know, I've been doing this 25 years. I've been down there a bunch of times, done it at night, been with CBP on the river, been with the people who process the bodies, been with as many ways as I could go. And I promise you, for the duration of your service, I'll be a call away to come down and report on anything you want people to see. You call, I'll be there within 48 hours. I promise you that. That's the job, and I'm committed to doing it. I know the terrain. I know how to do that job. But the message has always been consistent. Physical borders help, but we're not a wall away from being safe. You want to help us here down on the border? Change the asylum rules and give us a lot more resources to hold people humanely, process them quickly, and send them back. No more catch and release, and go after the cartels. You know, nowhere on that list is what sounds good politically to people who voted for Trump, which is round them all up. He doesn't say the 700,000 like you just did. He says all of them.
Well, like I said, I think the president's been clear that there's going to be a prioritization of criminals, national security threats first. But look, as I just explained, you know, there's a system. There's a system in place in this country. There's laws that were passed by Congress, enacted by Congress, and signed by the president. And all the hate coming right now to the president and myself, all we want to do is enforce the law. And we're at a place now in this nation where if you want to enforce the law, you're a bad guy. And I think the president's been pretty smart about prioritization on this. And look, I'm telling you, you know, if we don't secure the border, I testified about this the last time I testified. Yep. If we don't secure the border,
famously
more migrants are going to die, more women are going to be raped, we're going to have more angel moms and dads in this country. There's no downside in a secure border. But you're not going to have a secure border if you don't have consequences. So, you know, but what's the option? Let me ask you the question, Chris. What's the option? So these people who had due process were ordered removed by an immigration judge because they don't qualify for asylum because they made a fraudulent asylum claim. And like I said, the Remain in Mexico program, once they knew they weren't being released in the United States, they stopped coming. And why is that? If you're really escaping fear and persecution from your home government, you're going to wait in Mexico to escape that fear and persecution. So, you know, what is the option? Go through the whole process, have a federal judge order you deported and not deport them? Because you're never going to fix the southern border that way.
Look, I get it. And you're assuming they show up for the hearing. I mean, I get what the problems are. I'm just asking you to kind of think through the fix with people. And I'm happy to have you do it, Tom, because I respect how you've done the job and what you know about the job. And I also don't want you to just be known by my audience for your one back and forth with AOC. Look, your answers all made sense, except for one distinction. Legally, you were spot on with all of it. And, you know, I'm not an enemy of AOC. I think, you know, she believes in what she believes in. She's a socialist. But sometimes she has good points. But she didn't make the right point to you. The right point to make is you want to go after the cartels, great. If you can do it as a terrorist organization, great. I think legally it may be tricky. Everything else you're suggesting makes total sense. Catch and release makes no sense. But this roundup idea, and I haven't heard Trump say it the way you have. So if you know better, great. And if it becomes more tailored the way you're suggesting, okay. But if you are just grabbing whoever you can grab, not only do you have families that get affected because they're not all here alone, but you lose like 1 in 8 of your construction workers, 1 in 8 of your agriculture workers, 1 in 8 of your 1 in 12 of your hospitality workers. You lose a lot of people that the economy needs. Not all illegal entrants are the same. Do you take account for that?
Well, look, I think, like, I'm not saying we're just looking for 700,000 people. I'm saying we're going to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats. But if you're in the country illegally, you're in violation of law. So you're not off the table. But we're going to prioritize what we do. So I don't think me and Trump's different at all. But, you know, what I agree with your earlier premise. Look, Congress needs to do some work. I believe we should fix the asylum process because at your first interview on the border, when you claim asylum, that first interview, the threshold of proof is very low. And that was done on purpose because they don't want to accidentally send someone home and to be persecuted or tortured, right? But when you get to court, if you show up in court, that burden of proof is much higher. So these are real numbers. Like I said, about 90% of the people that come to the border and claim asylum under Biden administration, it's like 98%, they pass that first interview because they learn a few key phrases from the cartels of what to say to make yourself pass that first interview. Then when you get to court, if you show up in court, the burden of proof is much higher. And 90% lose, as you just said, almost 90% will get an order of removal. That is broken. They need to fix that. First interview needs to be at the same level as the judicial interview. That will stop the asylum fraud. Second of all, the TVPRA, Trafficking Victims Protection Act, had a great intent to protect children with trafficking. But the law says this: if you're a child from Mexico and you're ascertained not to be a victim of trafficking, you're immediately removed. But if you're from any other country, you can't be removed. You got a whole process take years. The misuse of that statute has caused 500,000 children to be trafficked into this country. And the U.S. government can't find 300,000 of them. So that has caused the crisis. And finally, the Florida Settlement Agreement. You know, under President Obama, when the family groups started coming across, we detained them in a residential setting, open-air residential setting, not a jail. We held them about 40 days in this residential center. Most of them lost their cases. We put them in an airplane and sent them home. Border numbers stopped. The family unit stopped coming. Then the Ninth Circuit comes out and says, you can't hold them for 40 days. You can only hold them for 20. I remember in my affidavit, I said, if you do this and only hold them for 20 days, you're going to see a family surge like you've never seen before. Of course, I was called a fearmonger, no evidence, and look what happened. As soon as the Ninth Circuit made a decision, skyrocketed family groups. There is actions Congress can take. Because what I'm tired of is every president comes in, and I'm a Trump guy. He had more success on the border than any of the 5 presidents I worked for. But when a president comes in on an executive order and intentionally unsecures the border, which was happened, President Biden ran on open borders. He ran on abolishing ICE. He ran on ending ICE detention. He ran on putting a moratorium on deportations. He ran on free medical care. When you make this type of promise to the whole world, they're going to come to the greatest nation on earth. But instead of a president coming in and doing executive orders, every other president doing something different, Congress needs to fix this. We're not going back and forth and being a ping pong on immigration. Look, immigration enforcement is very controversial. It's very emotional. I get it. But we have to secure the border because a secure border is going to save lives.
So if Congress comes to you, last question, Tom, and I appreciate you being here. You have an open invitation for the duration of your service. Whenever you want to communicate to the audience, the answer is going to be yes. Congress says, all right, what 3 things do you need, Mr. Homan, to fix the problem on the border? What are your 3 things?
Fix the Florida Settlement Agreement. Let us detain families in the residential center until they can see a judge, because most of them will lose, go home, and we'll send a strong message of consequence. The second thing is change the TVPRA, where children around the world are treated the same way as children in Mexico. So we can stop the child trafficking into the United States. Some of these children, and let me say, one of the priorities of the Trump administration, on top of securing the border and doing a deportation operation, we're going to try to find those 300,000+ children and save them, because I guarantee you, based on my 3.5 decades of work, some are in forced labor. We already found some in forced labor. ICE has already found some in forced labor. Some are going to be in sex trafficking. Some are living with pedophiles. Some of these children are living a life of hell. So we're going to find these children, rescue them, get them back with their families. But the TVPR needs to be fixed. The asylum laws need to change. In the Florida Settlement Agreement, you would solve 85% of the problem on the southern border. And we got to end catch and release. If you come across the border, we'll detain you or remove you. And if you want to make an asylum claim, make an asylum claim. But you're going to wait in Mexico, so the 9 out of 10 that lose, we don't have to go look for you. You're not going to be in the United States building equities and having U.S. citizen children. Because all that makes it more difficult when you actually come down to removing somebody. So we got to make sense of the laws. Like I say, I've worked for 6 presidents. I see policies that work. And I'll say this. No one can argue the fact. You look at the data. President Trump was unprecedented in his success. I worked for 6 presidents. Every president I worked for, starting with Ronald Reagan, took steps to secure the border. Clinton and Obama took steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have national security if you don't have border security. But Joe Biden is the first president who came in office and unsecured the border on purpose. I don't get that.
Tom Homan, I appreciate you having an extended conversation about where your head is and what the problems are, what the solutions would be, and your obvious experience in the conditions of the reality down there. Thank you for doing it. Like I said, I'm a call away if you
Hey,
want me to
Chris.
come down and see what's going
Hey,
on,
Chris.
especially on the trafficking piece. Last word to you.
And I'm going to take you up on that, Chris, because when we start this thing, we need to be transparent to the American people. What I'm saying to you on this show, but what our prioritization is and what we're going to do, I want to show the American people we want to keep to our word and do that. So I'm going to count on you to keep track of what we're doing and help tell the story. Because I think being transparent to the American people is going to be very important.
I'll come with NewsNation hats. Dinner's on us. Thank you very much for doing this service to the country, and we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.